today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
communication and how it gets in the way of sex and intimacy. Toxic masculinity is basically putting women down to uplift our masculinity. For a woman to have intimacy with you, she needs to feel safe. She needs to feel she can trust you. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. And today we are talking about bridging the communication gap, men, women, and intimacy. To really understand the communication gap between men and women, sex and intimacy, let's call it, we need to understand the psychology of men and women, what they have in common and what makes them different. Last episode, we talked a lot about the physicality, and we touched on this subject lightly. Today, we're going to go in deep. What we said in the last episode is the reality is that men have a masculine and feminine side, as do women have a masculine and feminine side. The reason for this is most of us grow up in households with a male and female parent. They may get divorced and we may see them separately. One may die, but we see our peers growing up in similar households. And I'm not saying there aren't households where there's two male parents and there aren't households where there's two female parents. I'm just saying that a majority of households have a male and female parent in them, and we internalize the masculine and the feminine based on how they present. We internalize it because we have internal representations of our father, we have internal representations of our mother. And many psychologists, by the way, would argue that even in same-sex households, one person, one parent, is going to have a tendency to embrace their masculine side more, and another parent is going to have a tendency to embrace their feminine side more. In fact, it's almost necessary in parenting to do that. Not that men can't be nurturing, not that women can't be protective, but one tends to be more than the other. One parent tends to be lean into one set of qualities more than the other. So we have these qualities inside of us, masculine and feminine. Even though our brains are not wired the same, we talked about this in the last episode, men have less connections between the lobes and tend to be more linear. Women have more connections between the lobes and tend to be more ecological as a result, because they move between those lobes more. Their creative and logical sides are more intermeshed. Men tend to be, or masculinity, let's call it, is identified more as logic, strength, and assertiveness, or it might be logic, aggressiveness, and assertiveness, while femininity tends to be linked more to intuition, empathy, and nurturing. Again, all right, I'm going to cover my you-know-what here. Men can be intuitive, empathetic, and nurturing, and women certainly can be logical, aggressive, or strong and assertive. We each have these qualities in us. Societally, emotionally, physically, we tend to associate certain qualities with each. As I mentioned in the last episode, and this is something we're all aware of, we are moving into a society where men and women are equal. But we're not there yet. Women do not get paid the same as men, though we're almost there. We've almost reached pay parity. Some women earn more than men. We have our leaders now acknowledge that if a woman is better at something than a man, she should be paid more than that man for the same thing, right? We're acknowledging that, but it wasn't that long ago that women could be better at something and paid less. It wasn't that long ago that women could be stronger in something, but a man would be in charge. It wasn't that long ago that happened. So what's happened is because we're at a cusp, a turning point, a tipping point culturally, where for thousands of years, the culture leaned in towards men being in charge. Now we're at this tipping point. Because of that, over thousands of years, women have learned to embrace their masculine side, right? And what happens when they do that is very often they're labeled as being bitches, right? When women show up in the business sphere as aggressive, as logical, as strong, as assertive, they're mislabeled. And because the institutions and the businesses for hundreds of years, thousands of years, have been male-dominated and dominated by our masculine side, in order to compete in that environment, women have needed to embrace their masculine side better. So the good news, better than men embrace their feminine side more. So the good news for women is they really understand the masculine. They know how to express their masculine side really well. The bad news is men don't, right? Because we've had it easy. Guys, we've had it easy. Particularly white guys. We've had it easy. We've been on the pinnacle for so long. We've had it easy. The reaction to this has been what is known as toxic masculinity. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about this. I just want to make sure that you get the context for why communication is so skewed between men and women. Toxic masculinity is basically putting women down and to uplift our masculinity. That's the part of us that says, oh, when a woman shows up a certain way, she's a bitch. I have trouble even saying the word. Toxic masculinity is a rejection of femininity. It's not just raising men at the expense of women, it's men rejecting their feminine side. Men being really intensely men, so much so that they cut off a part of themselves. And I want you to get that whole human beings embrace their masculine and their feminine side. Men have been particularly bad at this because we haven't had to be good at it. But men, I want you to get that the reason why you're not having the kind of intimacy that you want in your marriage today is because you aren't good at embracing your feminine side. What do I mean by that? And you tend to express your desire for intimacy and or sex in a direct, goal-oriented manner. You express it as, baby, I want some. Let me give you a massage. Can I give you a foot massage? Hey, let's go out to dinner, and after dinner, maybe we can spend some time together. Hey, you know what? Let's get someone to take care of the kids and go out to dinner so we can spend some time together, right? That's a very blunt approach. And your wife sees that. What women want when they want to be close, they express that through cues and indirect signals. They lay the seeds for intimacy through small actions over a period of time. And the reason is that for a woman to have intimacy with you, she needs to feel safe. She needs to feel she can trust you. And so she'll lay down the seeds for being intimate. And guys, what you tend to do is you see the seed, and once you recognize it, you go, oh yeah, she wants some, but you jump the gun. You take the cue too early. What she wants you to do is she wants you to play with it, to allow her to unwind, to allow her to feel safer. And in the last episode, we made this distinction between physical need and the need for emotional intimacy, right? It may be there are times, certainly when women just want to get some, there are times when men want to be intimate. But what I'm saying is, particularly after children, if you want to continue to have intimacy, sex, closeness with your wife, you need to be more focused on making love and less focused on having sex. Your wife is going to lay down cues for you, and you need to take them up. She's going to do something for you, and you need to show appreciation without asking for more. More being, hey, that's so sweet of you. Let's do it, right? You're going to need to develop your feminine side, is what I'm telling you. You're going to need to develop your understanding of how your wife works. You're going to need to have empathy and compassion for how she works, right? You're going to need to develop a track in your life so that you can communicate in the way that she's used to. That means there's going to be less of, oh, I had a tough day at work, honey, and I really need some. It's been so long. All right. It might be more like, wow, you know, it's been a while since we've been intimate. I really miss being close to you, and communicating that in a way, in a time and in a place where your wife gets that that's not an overture for immediate gratification. So it might be that like you're out to lunch together, or you're in the car together going on a trip, someplace where you probably most likely wouldn't be intimate together. And you say, wow, you know what? I really miss being close to you. Let's find some time to be intimate. And you know what she's going to say? She's going to say, yeah, me too. If she feels that you've given that to her safely. That would be embracing your feminine side. If you're embracing your feminine side, you start sowing seeds earlier on. And you might do that in a car trip a couple of days before you actually have a plan for consummating that experience. And after you've communicated that, you know, you might someplace where you where you can possibly have sex anywhere. That's why I'm stopping. I was going to say where you couldn't possibly have sex. Well, like honestly, you could have sex anywhere where you would, because of where you are in your marriage and your relationship and your relationships with other people, you wouldn't be likely to have sex because it might upset the social order. It might upset your family. You can be physical with her. Maybe when she's driving, you just massage her neck a little because you're very unlikely to have sex while she's driving. Okay. Or maybe when you're watching your kids at a school function, you just hold hands. Right. You want to lay in a with a you want to lay down the tracks like a woman would for intimacy. Now the problem is in your mind, you're thinking, yeah, this is going to lead to sex. Right. That's the challenge. And she's going to get that you have that energy. So if you really want to lay down the tracks for this, you're going to want to be in the moment and just be in the emotion. What it requires is planning like a guy, but acting side. Look, you're acting from your feminine side is actively seeking an emotional connection with your wife, not just a physical connection, and allowing the emotional connection to move to a place where you feel that she feels safe. Now, if you're in a marriage where you've been fighting a lot, where you haven't been getting along, this is going to be a lot harder for you. I get a lot of guys who come to me because their marriages just aren't working. Right? These are for you guys. This thing I just gave you. This is a general plan for guys, but where you are in your relationship determines how long it's going to take. Right? So relationships are like businesses financially, there's an emotional bank, right? If you've been fighting a lot and there's been a lot of disagreement, how safe is she going to be feeling? How safe are you feeling? Right? If you just want to bang it out at that stage, it ain't going to happen, right? She needs the emotional bank to be at a certain point to feel safe. She needs to know that you really love her, support her, and are on her side no matter what in order to feel safe. If she hasn't been feeling that way, you're going to have to leave a much bigger breadcrumb trail than I'm talking about here. In fact, in terms of communication, you're going to ease your way into intimacy, but ultimately your wife wants you to take the lead. Unless you've been taking the lead in a way that doesn't serve her. That's probably the best way to put it. If you've been taking the lead in a way that gratifies you but ignores her need, then she will demote you from the leadership role. And that means you're going to need to wait. You can lay the breadcrumbs. You're going to need to wait for her to give you a signal that it's okay. She might even have to say, honey, I'm ready. We haven't had sex in a long time. What do you say? It might come to that. If you are in an emotional state of bankruptcy or indebtedness because you haven't been nurturing your relationship, it may come to you. You cannot take the lead. You need to allow her to give you permission to take the lead again, right? If your relationship is in an emotional healthy state, right, you need to take the lead that she's given you and exercise it in the way that I was just talking about. And even let her know as you get that she's feeling safe with you and that she's receiving this compassionate, empathetic connection that you're laying down with her embracing your femininity, your connection to her. You even let her know, hey, how about Sunday? I think the kids are going to be away. We might have some time. What do you think? That would be gentle leadership. And she might say, no, that's not going to work for me. And then you say, all right, well, what do you suggest? I mean, when you know about the timing of this better than I do. She might say, I'm not ready, in which case you're in a state, you're more bankrupt than you thought. Or she might say, Sunday, not so much. How about Saturday? There are ways you can, and there's leading. All right? We are done with the age of, I'm in charge and we're going to do it. All right? That's over. Well, unless she's giving you permission for it, right? She might want you to show up that way. Your communication, this kind of leads into your communication about sex itself, right? If it's really safe, you can talk about how you do it or how you connect. In fact, that might be the next episode of Rich in Relationships. So yeah, let's talk about talking about sex. Let's talk about talking about sex. Not talking about having sex, but talking about how you have sex. In the next episode of Rich in Relationship, that's what we're going to do. So stay tuned. Hey, so If you have questions about this, reach out to me, rich@richinrelationship.com. Drop me a line on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you're hearing this. Tap me directly. I'm happy to connect with you. And look out for our July workshop for men on how to reconnect with your wife. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this with other men. And thank you for sharing your thoughts, comments, and requests.